Carolyn Dube here. What's the play for today? Well, today I'm going to be using a pool noodle and some gel print to make a necklace. I'm going to start by cutting a slice off of the pool noodle. This is going to become the base of the necklace. And whatever you've got to cut that off with, you just need a thin slice. However thick you make it, well, that's how thick your necklace is going to be. And by the way, it's a pool noodle. It cost $1, so you've got plenty of chances in here to try to get it to the way that you want it to be. So if you feel like the first slice off isn't perfect, keep on going, make some more. Now, if you're thinking, wait a minute, Carolyn, that blade is never supposed to be extended that far. That's not how this was meant to be used. You are absolutely correct. And that's why I am doing this gently, I'm doing it slowly, and I'm doing it carefully so that I don't put any extra stress on that blade, because it is meant to break apart at those score lines on it. So this is one of those gentle kind of procedures. Now that I've got a base, I want to grab some colorful paper to put on top of this. Now you can use any kind of paper that you want for it. I chose to use a gel print here. And this explosion of color, how I did this technique is one of the bonuses in my gel printing with Pan Pastels workshop. And if you're interested in learning how to make prints like this, you can find that link down below or all the information over at acolorfuljourney.com. And of course, there's a link for you down in the video description. So once I've cut off about 1/4 sheet of the paper, I'm then going to cut these into triangles. Now this is not precision cutting. This is not geometrically perfect triangles. This is eyeballing some triangles. The paper that I've taken this print on, by the way, is a 90-pound cardstock, basically a really lightweight cardstock, index card weight kind of thing. And I like that kind of firmness for the next step because we're going to be adhering this with something called Universal Medium, and it's by a company called PowerTex. Now this stuff is water-based and environmentally friendly. Now what I'm using here, this is the translucent one, so it does not require any kind of mixing or anything like that. But they offer colors. They've got black and gray and white and red and blue and yellow, all sorts of colors. If you have one of the colors of this, you do need to mix it well before you use it each time. But the transparent, you don't have to, so we can just dive right in. I'm going to put a puddle of it here onto my work surface. It's a nice thick consistency, so it's not going to run very far. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I covered my countertop with a piece of plastic drop cloth. Now this is one that I reuse over and over again, but the reason why I cover my counter in that is because I'm messy and I know I'm going to get it in places. And the PowerTex Universal Medium sticks to a whole lot of stuff, but it doesn't stick to plastic. So if I've got my surface covered in plastic, it's going to make cleanup very, very easy. Universal Medium is a hardener. So in order for it to do its job, it needs to be fully covering the paper. And so that's why I'm going to make sure I've got some on the top, the bottom, the sides, I've got it everywhere. And then I'm just going to wipe the excess off by squeezing it between my fingers because I only need a thin coat. I don't need it to be completely sloppy and dripping in order for this stuff to do its job. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that I did this gel print on index weight paper. So basically a light cardstock. And that's because, as you can see, I'm doing a lot of handling of the paper. If the paper is too thin, it's just really challenging to get it wrapped through all of this. But there is one drawback to using a paper that's a little bit firmer like this, and that is it's a little bit firmer and sometimes doesn't want to wrap around as easily as what I want. Well, there is a fix for that, and that is to let this stuff soak in the Universal Medium just a little bit, to let that paper get softened up by the moisture in there. Now the first piece of the gel print that I put on here, that went on really smoothly, very, very nicely, went exactly according to plan. This piece, however, not so much. And isn't that how it works when the camera's on, that one of them just really is just giving me fits here? But that is because it is a firmer piece of paper. So since the paper is going to act this way for me, I am going to intervene and let things moisten up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is take 2 of the strips of the gel print and I'm going to put them in the Universal Medium. I'm going to completely press it in there, let it start soaking, doing its thing, letting that moisture soften up that lightweight cardstock that I've got in there. As I envisioned how this video was going to go, I thought this is the part where very gracefully I will be wrapping this paper around. Everything will just go smoothly and perfectly. And that's so not what's happening here. I'm fumbling, it's awkward, it's trying to wrap this stuff around. And even with that reality, it's still actually a lot of fun to do this. Now, part of what makes it possible to be fun when I'm so clumsy about doing it is the fact that it's forgiving. So those triangular strips, what I found is as long as they're skinny strips, it's all good. And I can just wrap it as many times as it goes around there. And as far as how much of that universal medium to use, it's also very forgiving. As long as I've got it coated, whether it be a thick or thin coat, I'm all good. I tend to prefer a thinner coat of it simply because I don't want it dripping off of there. And in terms of exactly where I'm placing these triangular strips of gel print, it's not precise. My goal is to just cover up that entire pool noodle. And so as long as that pool noodle sponge gets covered up, then I'm going to be happy as a clam. It's also very forgiving for another reason, which you'll see a little bit later in the video. I've jumped ahead here because it's simply repeating that, wrapping those triangular strips of gel print around and around until you've got it fully covered. But I want to show you what I do near the end. I look at it carefully to see if any of that pool noodle is showing anywhere. If it's showing somewhere, I'm going to add another strip there. Or if I just need a little something to cover up, say, an edge that I don't like, or I don't like the way something overlapped, then I can strategically add another piece of it there. I also want to talk about my scissors there. They are my least favorite pair of scissors, so I was happy to turn them into my PowerTech scissors, because I've got all this stuff on my hands, and I needed to cut a little piece of paper. And so those scissors, they end up getting a little gunky with stuff on the handle, so I keep them as my PowerTech scissors. Well, now I've got that pool noodle just about covered up here, so I think it's ready to dry. So I'm just going to find a clean spot here on my plastic. I'm going to set it down and let it dry overnight. Does it really need overnight to dry? I mean, I'm an impatient person. Do I really have to wait that long? And the answer is yes and no. Yes, in a perfect world, I'm patient and I wait that long, and you'll see why in a moment. But no, you don't have to. Now, when it's drying, the top of it will dry faster than the bottom, which is sitting on the plastic. Makes sense, right? So even though it's very touchable up on the top, if you go and lift it off the plastic, you may end up tearing some of the paper underneath. Now, that's what happened to me on another one of these that I made, and I want to show you how to fix that just in case it ever happens to you. Now here's another one that I was making where the top of it, very happy with it, was so excited, but I lifted it up before the back was dry enough. And so it tore a whole bunch of the gel prints back there. But it doesn't mean that this one's ruined. It's an easy fix. All I'm going to do is grab a couple more of the papers and just wrap it around it and cover up the spots in the back. Now I thought, I'll just do a little bit of this. I don't even need to bother to put on gloves. Yeah, pretty quickly I'm like, it would have made cleanup so much nicer if I had gloves on. But I'm here now and I've got my fingers in it, so I might as well just enjoy it. Now this is another way that the universal medium is forgiving, because that first layer of it was now dry. I didn't have to do any prep work to it. I can just come right in and start adding more layers on top of it. The universal medium will stick to itself very, very nicely. Now I'm having to do a little of this repair here because I didn't let it dry completely before I lifted it off the plastic, but I can also come in and do this if I decide I don't like the placement of some of the strips after it's dried. If I decide I want to add a little bit more here or there, you can also come in and do it for that reason. Another reason why it is so forgiving and why I don't sweat the exact placement of where this paper is going when I start wrapping around that pool noodle, because that's the first layer. And I can easily come in and add a second layer anywhere I want to. And once I've got the second layer how I want it to be, then I need to find a spot on the plastic to just set it down and let it dry overnight. Now that these are completely dry, I'm going to decide which is the front and which is the back. And for that one, it was a real easy pick for me. And on this one, it really could have been either side. But once I've decided what I want in the front, then I'm going to feed a cord through it and then pull the tails through, and instantly it's a pendant. The cords that I'm using here, by the way, I got at my local fabric store. I got them by the yard. This one happens to be a leather or faux leather type string cord thing. There are all sorts of options of different things that you can use. This one happens to be more of a cord. It's kind of like a satin cord meets a shoelace. It's somewhere in the middle there. Don't know the proper term for it at all. But this is very forgiving. Whatever kind of cord fiber that you want to use to do this, you can do it. And like so many other things in this process, it's very forgiving. So if you feel like you've got the string on backwards, that you want more of the straight part in the front as opposed to seeing the loop, you simply take it off and put it on again, going from the other end. Oh, and of course, black is not the only option for what you can use to do this. Depending on what's available to you, what you have, you can also do it in colors. So here's another one that I did that was very turquoise, and I happened to have a cord that matched it just right. So here comes the cleanup. That plastic that I had covering my work surface, I let everything on it dry, and then any large areas of the universal medium, I can just peel right up because this stuff does not stick to plastic. And now I can very easily reuse that piece of plastic next time I've got my universal medium out. Well, thanks so much for joining me for today's play. If you've enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, I'd so appreciate it if you'd give it a thumbs up. And if you know of somebody that would enjoy this video, share it with them. That way they can join in the fun too. Now, if you'd like to know more of what I'm up to, you can hit that subscribe button. That way you'll know as soon as I've got a new video out. And of course, you can find everything about me over on my website at acolorfuljourney.com. Thanks so much for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.